This podcast is brought to you by the Ginger Camel Network. Visit us at www.gingercamelnetwork.com. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching, whatever time you're listening. Welcome to Your Onion Podcast Show. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is, let me get this right, Kari Aina Eik.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
100%.
Lovely. Welcome, Kari.
Thank you.
So, with all my guests, I like you to introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Think of it as if we've met in the elevator, and you've got 11 seconds to give me your elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch.
On who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always start with Norwegian. I'm very proud Norwegian.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's like my roots coming from.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure to be a lot around in the world the last 20 years, working mostly for the United Nations. Doing now passionately, connecting people, doing good projects. I think that describes me a little bit.
Okay.
What I'm working on and passionate for.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go back in time.
Yes.
How did you end up where you are now? Where did it all start? Okay, it started in Norway.
Yes.
But what did you study at school? University?
Yeah, I'm from a small city on the west coast of Norway, so from the fjord places. Yeah?
Beautiful place. I've been up on the road along the fjords, and it's just astounding. Because my mum's half Swedish.
Yes.
And Sweden is quite plain and boring. Oh, it's got lovely lakes, but you've got the coastline.
We have the coastline.
You have the coastline.
We have 4,000 kilometer coastline or something. I mean, it's quite long.
It's beautiful.
And I'm from one of these fjords there.
Okay.
I don't know what it was. Maybe my ancestors or something. But because both my grandfathers emigrated to America.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if it was in my blood or what it was. But I always felt the city is too small.
Why did they emigrate? Was it when?
Very tough times in Norway.
Yeah. Because I know Sweden had tough times, with starvation and stuff like that, and there was a huge emigration. Was Norway in the same?
Absolutely.
Oh.
So it was a lot of, we didn't find oil before quite late, right, in our history. So, it was, between the wars, a lot of people emigrated.
Okay.
We have we have millions of Norwegians actually in the United States still.
Really? You never really, I thought Swedes, but Norwegians.
The Norwegians,
yeah.
they are the ones.
Wow.
Vikings.
Whereabouts? Where were they kind of attracted to?
Midwest. So Minnesota, Minneapolis, all of this. This is huge, clusters of Norwegian, cities and villages in the United States. Not so many people know about that.
No. Not at all.
Yeah, so that was like a little bit the backdrop of me. So I always felt the city was too small for me. So actually when I was 13, I started to count down the days where I could leave Norway.
Really?
So I had 2,000 days that I was like counting down. So I knew that I had to do Matura, I had to finish my high school, and then I could go. And that's what I did. So I just finished high school, I left, and I've never been back to live there since that time.
Hold on, you're a proud Norwegian, but you haven't gone back to live there.
Yes. I have not.
Go back? You must have a summer house or something like that.
I have my family there, so I go there for holidays.
You go back for holidays.
Yeah, and now I'm actually very happy. I can tell you, but we are starting to work much more with Norway also on the city SDG scale.
Okay.
So now I've actually been there. Right, I'll tell you later. But anyway, and then I studied.
You were 16?
18.
18.
Yes.
And so where did you go?
Actually, I went straight to Vienna. I didn't know where I'm going to go. I was so bad in German, so I thought, okay, I need to learn German. Where do I go? Germany? Oh, Vienna sounds good. Let me go there. Never knew anyone. So I went to Vienna for the first time.
And what did you do?
I was just working there as an au pair and starting to learn German. That was the first thing I did, because you have to start somewhere.
That sounds like my mum. My mum, left to become an au pair.
Yeah, that's what I did. And now I've been in Vienna for 23 years because I came back. I had a little bit in between, but then I went back to Vienna. I love this. Now I'm half Viennese. Right? So
okay, so you went to Vienna.
Yes.
You became an au pair.
Yes.
Okay, then
I went on. Yeah, then I went out to Spain, and I was traveling a few years before I started to study. And then I went back to Oslo. I studied political science.
Why?
Because
what was what was the attraction?
It's just international relations, basically. But I very soon, and I don't know why, I started to really focus on Middle East. So already at that time, I just this is the most interesting region for me, history-wise and everything. So I started to study Middle East in terms of the relations, and I knew that I wanted to work for the United Nations because I thought, I want to work internationally. I'm good with people. This is my thing. And what I did, actually, I went to the foreign ministry when I was almost done, and I went to talk to someone there, and I thought, here I am, I'm ready for the UN. I mean, confidence I've had through the life, and they said, they said, why you? There's so many others.
Yeah.
And I left the foreign ministry at that time, and I thought, I'm never going to ask anyone for help. I'm going to do it on my own.
Okay.
And then I thought, where do I go? Vienna I've been to already.
Yeah.
So let me, where is the main seats of the UN? New York, Vienna, Geneva. I thought, let me go to Vienna. So I went to Vienna. I had the intention of starting a job in the UN. And I, found a lot of good ways to do that. And after 2 months, I was in a full job in the UN. And I've been there since.
Isn't it amazing? You have these books, and I listen to audiobooks, but they always say if you've got the will and the passion, there's always a way.
Yes.
To find what you want.
That's
and,
what.
Don't just send a CV and hope that you're going to get a job. You have to literally go and knock on doors.
You
and
have to.
Find the right
and that's
people.
what I did actually, because I heard an amazing professor who had a study for his students in Vienna, who took them to New York and briefed them on the United Nations and World Bank and all these things. So the first day I came, I knocked on his door and I said, I want to go with you on this tour. And he took me with him. And that was like the starting point. I started to get insights to the system.
Yeah.
And I'm happy now for the last years, I helped a lot of young people to get into the system in Vienna.
Yeah.
Whatever I can do to help, young people to get into these, interesting, bigger systems.
But you've got this amazing, you got the UN. Okay, you landed a job in the UN. What was your first kind of role?
Very interesting, actually, because there was a program by UNDP and GF, also United Nations Development Program and Global Environmental Facility. So this is more on the environmental side of the work. It's a big part of the UN's work.
Yeah.
And it was a cooperation project on the Danube, Black Sea. So more on the environmental side. Mm-hmm. So it was a cooperation between 14 countries on how to cooperate. It was very, this was in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, experience to be part of this project, and because it was after, the wall came down, right? So the Eastern Europe for the first time was opened, and we started to cooperate with these countries on the environmental side. When we started, the Black Sea was dead until, I think 50 centimeters was still alive on the Black Sea. It was the oxygen of the whole city. The sea was polluted of all the countries.
Yeah.
And why? You had to start to discuss this transboundary environmental issue. It's not just one country polluting. It's all of them, right? And they need to be educated. So it was a fantastic project to work on, because you worked from school children to ministers to get them to cooperate on solving the transboundary environmental projects. So, and the problems in the area. So that was my starting point, work on that project.
Wow,
and
what
from
a
that,
project.
it's been,
I'm just curious, when did the UN, I always think of the UN as being, the peacemakers when it comes to wars and, differences between countries. But for the environment, how far back can we go where they've been involved with looking after the environment?
From the beginning.
Really?
I mean, it's been,
always been on
of course,
their agenda.
Yes, absolutely. It's been from the beginning. I don't know exactly when the dates of some of these UN agencies, all of them, but for sure, it's been from the beginning. It's such a big part of societal development.
Well, it is now.
Yeah.
Looking back in the 90s, it was environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's been part from the beginning. Absolutely, it's been part of the first. And have there been
success stories, that you can, is there like a trophy room? Not like a trophy room, but is there like a success board where you can look back and the UN has achieved what?
I think, I'm a big supporter of the UN system.
Well, I know.
and I think we need something over the national states that can actually be part of, also driving change in this world. And that's why I think the Sustainable Development Goals is such an essential tool, framework for everybody, to work on. And that's been the role of the UN, not just peacekeeping and food security. It's been all of these things. How do you bring states together on something that's bigger than your own state?
Yeah.
And so for the UN to have this role, this was of course the idea from the beginning. And I think now implementing actually the SDGs, and I guess we will come to that, it needs to happen at the local scale. It needs to be independent from the politics, because development for me is above politics. If we should wait for everybody to be happy with each other, we will never get where we need to be in 10 years.
Yeah, but have you seen a mental shift with the whole environment situation? You know, the more educated we get and the more we see with climate change, has there been a shift in that thinking about the environment more? Has it made your job easier? Because when you bring all these people together, they're much more aware of what's going on.
Yeah, look at the children, what they're doing. They're even closing the streets in Vienna now every Friday.
I think it's fantastic.
Greta Thunberg, who is Swedish.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. And our children is doing it. I have 2 children. My daughter, they have different requirements and different expectations now that we had when we were young.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure you relate, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't think so much about climate change and all of these things
that was
when
the
we
last
were.
thing. It was more about nuclear war and that sort of thing.
Exactly,
not
Cold
the
War,
environment.
and that was what we grew up with, right? Now it's environment, it's
Absolutely.
plastic, it's our nature, it's our So of course we are pressured to do that. I think everybody says the new generation will do it, but I think we have an obligation to do it, and we can still do it. We have the tools to do it. So for the next 10 years, I want to invest 100%, or at least of my time and all the amazing people I have around me in the team, to try to have an impact on that.
Tell us what you're involved with. Because you seem like a character that's literally got the banner or the flag and you're waving it loudly. So what kind of things are you involved with?
As I said, I mean, just a little bit on the background, because I was in the UN system for so many years. And what I noticed is a few things that I thought, okay, if we're going to solve a few of those problems, we need to focus on that. One thing is the private sector. And we, at the UN, it's not set up for that, right? This is a neutral platform. Everybody has for transparency reasons, everything should be, but everybody's talking about private sector involvement. But very often it's a speaker on a conference. It's not eye to eye working with the private sector on business development, solutions, all of these things. So that was clear for me. We need a different way of working public-private sector. That was the one thing. Secondly, that we need to work in the cities. We need to work locally. We can talk at the national state, we can sit at the ministerial meetings, and we can discuss policies and all of these things, but the action and the real change is going to happen locally. So these 2 things is the backdrop for what I started in 2014, because I was then in the UN for so long, and I thought, if I leave the UN, I represent the private sector with the knowledge that I have inside the UN, and then set up something. So actually the role I have, my official role, is I'm Secretary General of the Organization for International Economic Relation in Vienna. So it's an Austrian-based organization, a business platform set up in 1947. So very interesting for political scientists. This is a very interesting space to work in.
So this organization was set up way back.
Way back, 47.
Right.
And it was set up to actually promote businesses internationally and work across borders. Very good force in the Middle Europe before the European Union, these type of things.
But that was more B2B, just, trade and...
and they've been going on and doing lots of good things. And then I came into the picture in 2012, with then a little bit out of the UN. I don't think they will realize
I can believe
they handed over. And I said, I would love to do that with this knowledge and doing more now business partnership for development. But at the same, really using it as an innovative, not think tank, do tank for really projects. So the first thing I did was to contact one of my previous colleagues in United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. This is a commission, there's regional commissioners from the UN in every region. And we said, why don't we set up something on cities? The UNEC did country profiles, and we discussed, why don't we do city profiles? And then we work with the business platform, bringing in the solutions and the financing, and we accelerate projects through like a city program. So that was the starting point in 2014.
So, all right, on layman's term, city program, in what way? Okay, you're introducing businesses, but what kind of business are you introducing to, these cities?
Key question. Because I was I'm driving into a city, same for Vienna, and there's a big sign that says, you're driving into a smart city. And I thought, how smart is a city? How can a city call itself smart On what basis?
What does it mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On what definition? Or how do you evaluate a city that it's smart and
Absolutely.
sustainable? Because
Yeah.
now I just use smart and sustainable in the same, never smart without sustainable. So that was my
Did the
starting
smart
point.
come first or the sustainable?
Sustainable comes over everything. Smart
Okay.
is an enabler for me in terms
Okay.
of technology or yeah. So that was the start. And then I thought, okay, we cannot go in with one solution because we need, a lot of these cities needs everything.
Yeah.
They need something on energy, linked to mobility. They need, of course, the ICT layers, the digitalization. They need waste, water, all of these things. So I thought we need to set up a framework where we can channel in solutions in a good way. So what we did, and ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, they have a lot of, that's a standardizing organization of the UN.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of standards for everything related to telecommunication,
yeah.
ICT, a lot of these things.
Okay.
And they had worked on standards for smart cities. So we brought in a lot of, on the environmental side and developed KPIs for smart sustainable cities.
But doesn't there have to be a lot of research done before you can advise on every city that you approach? Surely.
Yeah, I mean, for the UN, I think it's important to have a holistic approach because there is thousands of cities around the world, and you need something big enough. So someone needs to think big enough and to be able to scale this to accommodate all of these needs from cities.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have a standard that is accommodating everyone. And what we have managed now is that we have a standard for smart sustainable cities.
Right.
And we have core indicators that's the same for any city on the planet. If it's Doha or it's a small city in Norway, they are measured on the same standard. And then we have advanced indicators that is depending a little bit on the region and technology and all of these things.
Right.
That you also evaluate. So it's a holistic standard for what is a smart and sustainable city.
Okay, so there's a holistic standard that these cities can move up to.
Yes.
And you're basically offering them the solution to move up to this standard.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because every of those indicators, and we've been sitting with the business sector to decide on those indicators. So what indicators do you want to see to build a case for your solutions, especially sustainable solutions, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we want. So now we have managed to do, because city data is crucial. We have data out there, but it's not brought together in a good way to be used, right? So now that's what we are, I would say the biggest thing, except for the solution part, because the business is really in the heart of that, is how do we bring city data in that it's useful for decision makers and to plan the city differently? Because it sounds like amazing solutions and, they're all knocking on door with solutions, but how do you integrate it in the city that it fits with all the other things? This is complex issues today.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So you need someone and a hub for expertise on that. And that's really the core of it.
Is it easier if it's a newly established city to implement these standards, or
no? I wouldn't say that.
Doesn't matter.
And I think these satellite cities, there's a lot of amazing projects out there like future cities, and also we have here in Qatar, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think for me it needs to be integrated in the core of the city, because that's where most citizens live and will be living.
Yeah.
And we need to optimize what we have. And instead of building new streets, we can optimize and do changes to the traffic without even building the streets. That it's more suitable, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we do, and now the latest now is that we're doing digital twins of cities, where we put all this data in, so we can actually play with the data and see what could you change to have big impact in your city on all areas.
So what kind of data are you, pulling?
It's data on 3 dimensions. So it's economy, so all economy data, innovation, all of these type of things, everything related to economy. Then it's everything related to environment.
Okay.
So of course, because that's the challenge. How do you grow the city with the climate aspects now?
Absolutely.
How do you balance this out?
Yeah.
And then the society and culture, because ultimately everything we do is for our citizens, right? That they want to live in our cities. We don't want them to leave, right?
No,
we want them to
absolutely.
stay there.
Yeah.
So it's I think a very smart way of bringing a holistic approach to whatever it means for urban development. If it's in a planning stage or through projects, even procurement, it's a very holistic way of evaluating where the city stands. So you get a baseline, and every indicator is linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. Because that's also, everybody now, countries start to tell their cities they need to report on the SDGs, how they implement the Sustainable Development Goals locally.
Yeah.
Nobody knows exactly how to do it. Also, the private sector wants to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals.
Absolutely.
How do they do it?
Yeah.
So we wanted to find a roadmap here that everybody can link into. We can see how the private sector can contribute, and now the latest, the finance sector. Because everybody has told me for the last 10 years, there's enough money, but the money is not finding the projects.
No, very true.
Yeah, so now they can walk the talk, because now we will have so many projects coming from our cities that now we can actually set up something very interesting for investors to be part of what we do. So
how can we find more information about the roadmap and?
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
how does anyone find?
Yeah, I mean, we have websites and we have lots of things that we have lots of events and things where we are gathering, cities and private sector. It's open for everybody. So that's the smart city. Yeah.
What's it called? What's the
the mother project is now called United for Smart Sustainable Cities.
Okay.
That's with the 16 UN agencies behind, led by ITU and UNICE and UNHabitat. And then we started the program United Smart Cities, and it's all integrated together now in one big platform.
Nice.
So
And do you have like an entourage of businesses following you wherever you go, because you're like initiating, these standards and. So it must be good for business.
I think one of the key indicators for us is how interested is the business to work with us, because that's what I really in the core of it all. And I'm really happy to say that it's a lot of interest from the private sector now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we are covering, and I think, this bridge, someone told me once that, Kari, nobody invests in the glue, in the bridge. It sounds like it happens, right? That the solutions finds the city and just the world is moving forward in the best way. I don't believe in that. I believe that it's the need for a glue and a bridge between these things to make it now, because we have a solution for everything. Everything is here for us to solve our challenges for the next 10 years, because I think we have 10 years. I don't think we have much more if we don't get on track now. So every ingredient is there, but we have forgotten to invest in the glue. We just think this is going to happen on its own. The startup and everybody's doing pockets of amazing things, but bring it together. And we're trying to be as bold as possible, quick as possible, to get something that everybody can relate to and find their place. We are, for the private sector, we're doing everything we can to find a place for them to be part of it in a very substantial way, not just like being part of getting a logo and be a speaker. I mean, this is for me far beyond.
Yeah. So are you finding yourself traveling all over the world? And
yeah, probably too much. But you need to be there to explain this. I feel that's also my role to promote not just the hard work we've done for 5 years, because a lot of people ask me, why we haven't heard about this? You've been
the first time I knew about it was when Willie got in contact with us and said, oh, this amazing lady's coming into town and you need to talk to her.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate we have not been so much out there, because we have now a run of cities who wants to be part of the program. We have a waiting list now to be evaluated. We have
is there enough of you to go around? Are there enough people to give advice and implement these?
I think this is the balance, because you are growing in terms of interest, and then you need to grow the framework. This is of course absolutely. This is I wish we could have much more resources, because I would hire 100 people tomorrow to work with us, because now we work with a lot of experts and fantastic people. I would say we have found the Mick Jaggers of Smart City. They are working with us. So we have the best people on anything you can imagine on urban development.
That's an interesting description.
Yes. So so we have them and we make them available. But of course, it would be fantastic to bring it together in a bigger team, right? So we could facilitate. And that's what I really want. I'm discussing now with different countries and also with Qatar, because I want to see how we can, bring this up to, of course, because for me, it's a top-down and bottom-up approach here. We need smart nations, right? We need smart, sustainable nations, but we need to use the cities to show the concreteness of it all. So,
Are there certain cities that you can use as an example of, this working? That you can say, well, you need to have a look at this city and... There are.
Absolutely. The smaller city, you cannot believe, the first city country who is now budgeting on the Sustainable Development Goals?
No.
Accra. And Accra in Ghana is now teaching in Norwegian cities to do budgeting. Isn't this amazing?
That is amazing.
And we need these good examples.
Absolutely.
You cannot find them easily. I remember one time the mayor from Amman told me that he was in London and they discussed and everybody, then they go home. What's happening?
Yeah,
nothing. So, that's what we need. We need this, and you have the sister cities, but you don't cooperate on these crucial topics for the future. Sustainable Development Goals, smart city, technology integration, these infrastructure, financing, business models for financing. The cities are not discussing at this level to each other, but that's what we can do because we can bring them together to discuss at that scale.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we've got 10 years.
Yes.
Is it looking good for the 10 years?
I'm a born optimist.
I can
You
see
can
that.
tell
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I know it's possible.
Well, everything's possible. But are we in the right frame of mind? And can we do it?
We are. Because there's so many people thinking, not just like I do now, but who really wants
I
to.
feel that, absolutely.
Yeah. So whatever means we can use, and that's why I'm happy to be here too, because we need to promote this idea, right? Through the media, through the business community, to the finance community, and get someone to believe in something more than just what you are doing on your own. And I think that's also maybe the essence of why I love what I do, because I see we give hope to cities. We give hope to cities that's maybe not been seen so much, who has had maybe big environmental problems, because you have cities with really big challenges now around the world.
I can imagine,
And lacking investment. Sometimes I'm bringing top people from big banks and they say, yeah, but Kari, there's nothing to invest in here. And I said, yeah, but this is the reality. We need to invest in these places because we need development, because so it's a way of giving trust, seeing beyond your own
I know,
garden.
But can you convince corporations and investors to invest if they feel that there's nothing, they won't gain their investment back?
They will get it back. They will get it back. That's the interesting thing, because we are having now so many projects from different fields that for all this, I'm sure we will find a very good method to get investments into the Sustainable Development Goals, but at the same time, of course, get returns to the investors in here. And I think, I think some of the sovereign wealth funds needs to take the lead, because someone needs to start and be more proactive into this environment.
You talk about the sovereign wealth fund. Are Norway very active?
Not yet, but we will for sure. Yeah, I mean, we are here in Qatar also now. We have this is probably the two biggest sovereign wealth funds, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So, and I think that also Norway and Qatar has an obligation to go for in front of a lot of other things. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I want to challenge also the Qatar here to be part of this from the beginning, because now we're just setting up the fund that we are going to roll out.
Nice.
And we could frame portfolios and geographical areas and topics, and getting also investments back.
So with these smart cities, is it are we looking at renewable energy all over these cities, recycling plastics, water, etc., etc. That's all.
Every infrastructure, urban sector,
and like building materials as well, using renewable, or recycled.
100%.
Yeah,
because it's the same problems in most cities.
Absolutely.
Waste management. Why do we have 100 countries with a problem with waste management, and we don't have a business model to get investments down to the local level?
No.
Who is working on that? Of course, there is good things happening. World Bank, a lot of organizations and banks are doing fantastic things. Yeah. But at the global scale, in a broad, with such a, you don't have in such a scale. So it needs to be, but because I think these pockets of goods needs to be brought together. And I still have this naive way of thinking that there is no competition. We just need to partner up with the best of each of these institutions or countries or whatever, private sector, and get the best out of it together. But
it is the governments that need to really, take action. Because if you don't get their blessing, it's going to be tough, isn't it?
I know, but I always, as the children now are pushing us to do things.
Oh yeah,
I want the city,
power.
and I want the cities to push up. And that's what's happening now in a lot of the countries, because the cities really want to be part of our program. So they are pushing, and even without the government, they are joining,
you're right.
right?
Even in America, they're much more, you hear of the different states taking action and ignoring the government.
Yeah, so you can imagine also in a country like Netherlands, that we are just now, maybe we'll evaluate 40 cities in the Netherlands, but also in other countries. If your cities wants to be part of this, then if your capital cities are part of it, if Doha is part of that, you need to step in.
Yeah.
And that's been the process. It's been a natural process that we are not talking more to the government.
No,
but
true.
I mean, of course, the UN is set up as a national platform, right? Yeah. So you would have the ministers and the mayors then in the same room. And that's what you need, because you need the policy changes to be able to do the changes here. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of not so challenging decision making that needs to happen in the next 10 years. And if you get the cities and the citizens to understand that you need to do these changes, it will ease the whole politics.
As you said at the beginning, it can come from the bottom up.
Yeah, it needs to. The need is from the bottom up, but the support needs to come also from the national level and using the institutions that's there.
Superb. Kari, we've run out of time. And you said half an hour was long.
No,
it's just whizzed by.
Yeah, no, I could be here for a few hours.
No, I know, I'm sure you can. No, yes. It's been very enlightening, and I could speak to you for hours. But
thank you so much.
Thank you for giving us an insight.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. No, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. This podcast has been brought to you by the Ginger Camel Network. Visit us at www.gingercamelnetwork.com.